So, Doug, thank you for coming onto the channel. This is actually the first time that you've actually been recorded with me on my channel, but we've talked quite a bit, behind the scenes. So, what we're going to do for the audience is describe some of the products that I offer on my store that's, from your company, and how that parlays with this protocol that I have, this anti-aging protocol, with some of the other things that I offer. I package this thing up for people to kind of improve their health. So you can talk about the products that you offer, and then we'll pivot to some breaking news that I think that's going to be very unique to the audience, and they really need to pay attention and really get engaged, because what's going on in our governments is going to change the landscape of the natural health and supplement business. So thank you for coming on board, Doug.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. We partnered up for years here. So I want to talk about the very first thing.
Structured silver.
Yeah. Silver solution. So I have a lot of people that purchase this product. What I do is I take this every day. I usually take about a tablespoon of this a day, usually in the morning. And this will help. For the way I use this is to neutralize pathogens. And, and I couple it with some other things. I have 3 pillars for this anti-aging protocol: the nano silver pillar, the antioxidant with the C60, which is a very strong antioxidant, and then turmeric and ashwagandha and the resveratrols to reduce inflammation, control blood glucose levels, get rid of senescent cells. And then you hang some other stuff like the multivitamins that you offer, and I also have a package where people can get vitamin C and the zincs and the B vitamins and whatnot, and even the clarity factor, which helps with the brain fog. But let's first focus on the products that you offer here. So the silver solution, for the ones that don't know about nano silver and they're just starting off, what are the main differences between this type of silver solution versus the olden days with the colloidal?
So there's actually a lot of difference, and we'll also get into sort of myth busting some of the silver stuff too, is because I'm sure anybody that's watching this, there's people that are actually afraid of silver, and we're going to talk about that and the differences. So the primary differences with what you've got in your hand there and what we supply you with is that is a nano silver. And to my knowledge, we're one of the only silver manufacturers that actually have a spectrum analysis report on the silver particles. So we put that under a very special microscope and measured the particles, because we wanted to make sure that there was no clusters. And we wanted to make sure that if we're saying, hey, we're producing a nano-sized silver particle, that we're actually proving that. And I can send those reports over to you as well. So we've got a very, very small silver particle, which is basically a nano-sized particle. And for those people that may be watching that hear the word nano and go, ooh, with what they were putting in people's bodies the last couple of years, I want to stay away from nanotechnology. Please understand that when we're referencing the word nano here, it's strictly about the size of the particle itself. It's not a nano-sized or a nanotechnology that may be nefarious for the body. So when we say a very small nano-sized silver, it's basically under 100 nanometers, which is, you could stack thousands and thousands and thousands of particles on the tip of this pen is what that means. So what it means is when it goes into the body, it will break through the blood-brain barrier. It'll get distributed through the body properly to where it's needed. So the other differences with that silver too is it's based on structured water. So when we look at other silver products in the market, they're based on a purified water or a distilled water. And our whole goal in the products that we produce and what we do is to keep the product, keep the whatever the ingredient is that we're trying to serve to the body as it's found in nature. Because what we do know is the closer and the more that we can keep anything as it was, let's say in the wild, the better the body is going to react to it. Because when we look at different forms of supplementation and different forms of things and products that people put into and onto their body, it seems that the more heavily influenced the ingredients are and the products are by man, the less they work and the more we just see lack of success in that, I guess is the best way to put it. So whenever we make a product, we want to follow that genealogy of ingredient. We want to ensure that we're not pretending that we know to do something better with that ingredient than what that ingredient was to do in nature, if that makes sense to you, Paul. So with structured water is basically as water is in a river. It's flowing at a specific speed. It's pooling around rocks. It's picking up mineralization. It's a whole different, it's a crystalline structure of water. So essentially what it does is that water molecule looks like a diamond, for lack of a better understanding there. So what we're able to do is we're able to actually bond the silver molecules to each corner of the water molecule. So we actually get 4 silver molecules per water molecule. And why is that important? Well, it creates what's called a catalytic firing action. So those silver molecules are constantly recharging up and down, side to side, recharging those silver molecules, keeping it effective the entire time that it's circulating in or on top of the body. So whereas older forms of colloidal silver, for instance, which are basically 1 silver molecule to 1 water molecule, can expel themselves out of energy after a short period of time in the body. So we've got structured water, we've got the nano-sized particle, and then we're the only silver that's actually alkaline. So when the simple way to say it is when we look at our immune system, we look at our body will embrace an alkaline, it'll reject an acid. So we've got a silver product that's completely safe to use anywhere, both in and on the body, but we're also a silver that's going to be embraced by the immune system. So whereas the other silvers on the market are actually an acidic state silver. So that's really important to know. And we notice it, like if we were to use it as an eye drop, it won't burn or sting like an acidic property would. That's just a quick test. So when we look at silver in general as a supplement, silver is different than any other form of supplementation, whether it be a vitamin, mineral, or herb, is silver actually doesn't metabolize in the body. So it works in partnership with the immune system and the digestive system, but it doesn't put any workload on the immune and the digestive system. So when we see people that are, in heavy digestive distress, and we can talk about the anti-aging component of this within it too here, Paul, but when we've got somebody that's that they're feeling horrible, like their body is really feeling rough. Well, what we've got here is something that isn't going to come into the body and make it feel worse, if that makes sense. It's actually going to help take some of that workload off, go after the root cause of what's making the person not feel well, and help them in the course correction side of things.
Yeah, let me just interject, just from a personal standpoint, how I use the product, I take it every day, but I also take the probiotic that you offer. So, and then I partnered up with Boomer Products. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I don't have the bottle here with me. But maybe I do. I also take this digestive enzyme. So okay. I couple it. So this helps to break down the proteins, the carbohydrates, the lipids, right? But if people don't really realize that your gut biome, if you don't have the proper distribution of different microbes, right? Because there's many different microbes there, you won't have the proper metabolism. We need that metabolism to communicate between the liver, between our brain, right? To be able to metabolize properly, to absorb nutrition. And with the Western diet, you know, the lining of the gut is just kind of just caked, right? So it's not absorbing properly. And people have, lots of skin issues because of it, or metabolism issues. So, I'm a big fan of Dr. Group. I don't know if do you know Dr. Group
A
at
little
all?
bit.
All right. So I'm a big fan of his. And, so I listened to his videos, and, he was right. Once in a while, you need to do the cleansings. But once you do the cleansings, right, the colon cleansings, the kidney cleansing, the liver cleansing, but once you do that, you have to repopulate, especially with the colon. You have to repopulate the gut and do maintenance, right? And that is eating a good diet, not full of the GMO stuff, exercise, proper nutrition, but making sure that daily that you're taking the probiotics. So there's a synergistic effect that's going on when you take the silver and the probiotics.
Well, that's the cleanse and the rebuild. So if you look at the silver,
right.
for instance, what does silver do, right? Silver naturally cleanses yeast, bacteria, fungus, and mold, right? And there's been some studies on what silver does with viruses too, but let's just stick on those 4 components for a second. If we look at what's harming the digestive system and what you're talking about there, it's a yeast, like I say, a virus, a fungus, or a bacteria, right?
Mhm.
And those things are growing. It's a hot environment. It's an acidic environment in the digestive system. You could almost just say it's almost like hell in your body, right? It's just terrible. And when we look at it from an anti-aging standpoint, you're talking about the stomach lining and everything there for a minute, is when that stomach lining is getting caked, like you're talking about, it's those bad bacteria and those bad pathogens that are actually eating the walls of the stomach. And as they eat the wall of the stomach, then they create holes in the stomach, and that's what's called leaky gut syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And then it causes those pathogens and those bacteria and everything to seep out of the walls of the digestive system. And this may sound gross, but it's a lot of what's going on in health today. And they circulate throughout the body. They cause inflammatory concerns, but in a lot of cases, they'll make themselves out to the skin. And people that have these skin conditions, for instance, that they've tried every topical solution on the market, and most of them are just chemical filled sludge products to begin with, but they'll go after these skin conditions topically. And they're like, why can't I get a hold of my skin condition? But if we can work with them to get a gut reset and get those walls in the stomach starting to repair themselves, get all of this junk cleansed out of the digestive system, then that plugs the hole in the boat. All of a sudden, the skin starts to look and feel better. So when we look at it from an anti-aging standpoint, a lot of people are looking older than they may be because they've got a digestive problem, right?
Exactly.
And then they throw more chemicals at this aging problem. And when we look at aging, for instance, we look at vanity, right? We look at, hey, I need to put all of these products on my body to make myself look and feel better, right? Because what marketing has done in the world is it's played to the inferiority and insecurity of people saying they have to look a specific way. And they spend a huge amount of money to look a certain way and feel a certain way, because heck, we all want to look good and feel good about ourselves when we look in the mirror, right? It's just part of how we've been raised. But what most people don't realize is as they pour all of this stuff onto their body, all of those chemicals are coming in through the skin. All of these things that they're consuming are coming in through the skin into the digestive system. And once again, putting that workload on the liver, on the kidneys, because that's where everything ends up in the digestive system. We've got this vicious circle of further breakdown. So one of the best things from an anti-aging standpoint is, first and foremost, let's get a hold of the digestive system. Let's get it going in the right direction, right? Let's get proper hydration, because that's another problem when we look at people that are looking or feeling older than they should, or they're looking in the mirror and saying, man, I'm looking older than I want to be. Well, in a lot of cases, people are just actually dehydrated. So we've got to get the dehydration or the hydration going. We've got to get the sleep going, the exercise like you're talking about. So whereas most outfits or companies or anything are trying to really promote a certain aspect of anti-aging, I believe, and we've seen it over and over again, that people can actually really reduce the effects of the looking of age by curbing lifestyle. And this is exactly what you're talking about here. And the products that you're talking about in the kit that you're doing, it just makes sense, right?
Mhm.
And
The thing is, a lot of people have bought into this idea that one product is a silver bullet. Just take vitamin C and you'll be fine, or just take C60, for example, and you'll be fine. And no, 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 no. There are pillars to this,
yeah,
and that, and a resetting of systems, right? But there's the compounding effect when you're using these types of supplements on a regular basis. You'll start to feel better. Your immune system is more active. You have more energy. When you have more energy, you start moving around more. You build more muscle mass. When you're more active, you're healthier mentally. You get better sleep. You have more REM cycles. So there's this compound effect, right?
yeah.
If you look at someone that's chronically stressed, always eating Doritos, don't, they're always just watching the TV, right? They are aging much quicker. But when someone is more active, healthier mentally and physically, has, applied different modalities and different pillars to their supplementation, over time, they'll start to see huge benefits when they compare themselves to their peer group.
Mhm.
Like, I'll be turning 51 in the middle of this year. All right. Now, I started jumping on this whole anti-aging thing back when I was 16.
You're a young 51. I turned 49 this week. I mean,
So,
you could pass for 30s.
yeah, but the thing is that heart disease runs on my mother's side of the family. My brother died from heart disease in 2010. And I just kind of like, that was the shock to the system, and I just like really started, reading a lot about, this is back in the 80s, right? So I started reading a lot about antioxidants. So, it was the basic stuff, the vitamin A, the vitamin E, the vitamin D's, right? But as time has gone on, stuff like this has hit the market, right? The C60s that have hit the market, this is something I take every day, this is the strong antioxidant to soak up the reactive oxygen species. But the point here is that as time has gone on, things have come to the market like NMN, and the benefits of that may be coupled even with resveratrol. But, the science of aging and being able to understand it and trying to slow that process down. It's not just a hypothesis. It's a truly a working theory. There's a body of knowledge about how to slow down the aging process. So once people start realizing the products that I offer from other companies, but also your products, they're synergistic, and that's the key. There's not one magic bullet. If someone just takes silver solution, you're not going to get the same effects as if you're taking these together.
Well, and because what you're doing is you're building, a foundation here. Silver is going to come in, it's going to do the cleanse, right? It's going to get rid of those things that we talked about. Then you talked about the probiotic, right? Well, probiotic isn't the cleanser. Probiotic is basically, we'll call it the dirt in the garden, if that's the best way to say it, right? And if we look at our digestive system as a garden, right? We want good probiotic bacteria. We want good digestive enzymes to be able to grow and flourish in that garden, right? And this may sound a little bit hokey, and I'm not trying to, but it's just trying to paint a picture here. So that when you consume food, right? because realistically, food is what's supposed to go into our digestive system, not all of these chemicals and everything else that we're putting into it. But when we put food into our digestive system, that probiotic bacteria, those digestive enzymes, break that food down, distribute it throughout the body where it needs to go to feed the body. And we have something that's operating healthily, right? So when we looked at the probiotic, for instance, and how we wanted that probiotic A to work in symmetry with the silver, but just how it was to work with the digestive system, so that's an MB40 digestive strain probiotic. It's a patented MB40, and there's a lot of research that's just come out on that MB40, and that's why I'm saying it right now, is regards to that specific formulation and Staphylococcus, for instance. So that is a spore-based probiotic, and there isn't a lot of spore-based probiotics on the market because they're expensive to manufacture. Two is there's a patent on that probiotic that it actually is the longest lasting probiotic in the digestive system that doesn't get eliminated by the heat and the acid. So where most probiotics may be dead within 15 to 20 minutes of hitting the digestive system, and we see all sorts of gimmicks in the space where companies will say, hey, we're going to dual encapsulate this probiotic, or we're going to do these funny things to try and make it last longer. There's so much of the nutritional space is marketing, and we could do a whole episode just educating people on the deceitfulness, let's say, in the supplement industry. But anyway, so that's a patented probiotic that will last longer in the digestive system. But then what we've done is we've actually added slippery elm, turmeric, fiber, inulin, and aloe. So it's going to also coat the bowels. It's got psyllium in it. So it's actually going to help pull junk out of the system and distribute it out of the body. But a lot of people with digestive systems, they're not going poop enough, right? Their system is backed up. So what that probiotic is going to do is it's going to help soften the system. It's going to help lubricate the bowels. You know, a lot of times when we have people that are backed up, it's like, hey, eat lots of strawberries and fruit, you know, get yourself the right lubrication to move. So within that probiotic, it's got those properties so that we can get people moving again. Because go ahead there.
You know, what just popped in my head is this: as individuals start to age, you know, you start to see in the clinic people getting diverticulitis, right? So, you know, and that's basically outpouching in the sigmoid colon, and you know, there could be inflammation. Sometimes it can burst, you know, sometimes it's an emergency surgery type of thing, but it's basically because they're constipated, you know. But this is a very common problem for ones that start to age, and it's starting to creep up even into the 40s in individuals that are in their, you know, in their 40s or 50s. But the point here is that if you properly maintain your gut health, you're going to prevent some of these things downstream that normally pop up in your 60s, right? In addition, you know, proper gut health is correlated to reduce colon cancer. You know? And you know, if you live long enough, you'll eventually get a polyp, right? I mean, that's a known fact. I mean, you know, so you can't prevent colon cancer 100%. You know, if you live to your 80s or late 70s, even if you know, are Bugs Bunny and eating all the vegetables, you know, in the garden, you know, you'll eventually get some sort of neoplasm, right? Because you just have so many, you know, trillions of cells in your gut that's constantly being, I think the turnover rate is like 7 to 10 days or something like that. So, I mean, you know, it's just, you know, there's a lot of mitotic activity, and mistakes can happen. But the point here is that if you have the proper gut health, you know, cleansing and repopulating with probiotics and proper diet, you're reducing your chances of some of these, you know, these problems like diverticulitis, even like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. These individuals, they're always in inflammation mode. Your body, there's constant inflammation associated with Crohn's,
But
And so if you bring down that inflammation, it gives a little bit of time for some of those ulcers to start to heal. So,
totally.
yeah.
Well,
So,
and it's, you know, an interesting concept, and this is what a lot of people aren't talking about. So we're basically third generation here. So if we look at, let's say, our parents, or it started with our grandparents, that all of a sudden that was the generations of the processed food, of the fast food culture, right? Of the microwave, of the frozen foods, because prior to our grandparents, food was fresh. You went to the store and you got fresh food, right? Then all of a sudden, you know, the highway system came into the United States. All of the fast food restaurants started popping up, and we got this fast-paced culture, right? And what we're doing now is we're actually suffering the effects of what that's done to us.
mhm.
And if
You bring a great point, and I think that there's I think his name's Foster or Fauster, Dr. Fauster. He's a well-known cardiologist. He's in his I think he's almost 80 or 80s. But they did a big study, and what it is that cardiovascular disease really starts in your teens,
Mhm.
and you get the yellow streak plaques that just start. It's the very beginnings of the plaque buildup, and then it starts to get worse and worse and worse. Once you get into your 30s and 40s, and then the heart attack, and right, and you're right. What was interesting is even during the North Korean, the North, South Korean War, right? So the Korean War. So back in the 50s, so what happened in the 50s? You're talking about the beginnings of the fast food industry. This is when McDonald's is coming out, right? And right, but the surgeons, when the soldier was wounded, and they had to do, some sort of open thoracic surgery, they were noticing that the soldiers you could see the beginnings of cardiovascular disease. And you didn't have that as much in World War II,
right,
because there was the pre-fast food generation. But the surgeons started to see what Fauster is mentioning now, is that these yellow streaks are the beginnings, and it's happening in your teens. So, I'm not trying to be a doom and gloom guy, but
it's just reality, though.
right?
It's
If the earlier you start to eat healthy, especially when you're, a teenager, the better off you will be in your 40s, for sure, because of that cardiovascular set-off point with the yellow streak.
So we're almost coming to a full circle here, if we look at this from an awakening, let's say. So we had these generations of the fast food, the breakfast cereals, like we'll call ourselves the chemical kids for lack of a better word, because when we look at what our diet was growing up as kids, you had hot dogs, and you look at the breads that were made, the Wonder Breads, and you had the breakfast cereals, and you had the microwave this and the fruit roll-ups. Like your whole world was pre-packaged convenience foods. We grew up in homes where mom and dad both worked. So what was it? Let's throw lunch together, but lunch didn't come out of the refrigerator. Lunch came out of the cupboard, right? And there's no way to make food last in the cupboard for 6 months without filling it full of a whole bunch of crap. So we grew up, and I'm not even going to say for a second that our parents did any of this to us intentionally, because everybody was just following the societal wave, right? You'd come home from work, you'd throw a couple pizza pops in the microwave. Like that just was the world that we grew up in, and we didn't know any different, and our parents didn't know any different. But now that we're, say, 40, 50 years into this, and we see how health has just done this, just astronomically, especially over the last 30 years, now people are waking up and saying, okay, we've actually been able to pinpoint where we kind of went upside down here. And we're seeing more of a shift culturally now to get back to the basics of, you know, proper foods, proper nutrition, and not everybody's on the ride yet, but more and more people are waking up. And I think that with that, more people are starting to make those decisions, and especially for their kids at a younger age,
I
because
think there's probably two reasons why they're starting to move into this positive direction. One is that they're starting to see the benefits, and that, when they're getting older, their things are starting to not work right, and they're going, well, wait a minute, I need a change, right?
right.
The other thing is the realization that healthcare is getting very expensive. To go to the doctor is expensive. To get treatment for certain diseases is expensive. It is cheaper in the long run to start with the basics, and that is proper diet, exercise, nutrition, and supplementation, right?
And you can even eat hopefully cheaper than you can eat garbage.
Right.
And, a lot of people think that they need to eat more than they're eating, but, you can eat a really good, healthy, balanced diet for less money than you can eat.
Well, to bring up a good point, when you're, taking these kinds of supplements, right? The silver solution and the probiotics and, and the other stuff, the digestive enzyme stuff. But when you're doing the cleansings type stuff, what will happen is that you're absorbing more of the nutrients that you're taking in. So you don't need to eat as much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So in the American diet, ones that aren't taking supplementation, it's a poor diet kind of situation. It's King Dongs and Twinkies and and McDonald's, right? They're not absorbing properly because the gut is just being destroyed, literally being destroyed at the molecular and the cellular level, right? All right. But when you heal the colon and the intestinal tract, right? What will happen is that you're absorbing the nutrients that your body needs at a higher efficiency. So you don't need to eat as much.
Right.
Right. And you'll start to actually realize, oh, that big hamburger that I used to have to eat to feel like I have the energy, that can be downsized to maybe about 25%. Right. And and because you have more energy and you feel better, what will happen is that you'll actually get more muscle mass, and your body will become leaner. Instead of the American getting fatter and fatter and fatter, it really is a lot to do with the gut.
It is. And it's that dopamine. Like, people have massive yeast outbursts in their body. And a lot of people don't realize that yeast is more addictive than cocaine. So it's like this other person living inside of you, telling your brain, I want. And that's where, when you go down the vegetable aisle in the grocery store, it's a pretty boring experience, right? But you go down that chip and chocolate bar aisle in the grocery store, you have it's like Disneyland. Like, your emotions are high, and you've just got this, wow, like, I want it all, and you just want to put it all in. You haven't even eaten it, you can't even smell it, but your body knows, hey, I need this. And there's that addictive, and that's a big yeast condition of addiction that's saying, you got to feed me, you got to feed me, you got to feed me. And that's why with a lot of people that have yeast conditions, it's like I say, a second person living inside of you that you don't want there, that you've got to work to get.
There's definitely a communication that's going on with the gut.
Yeah.
And other organ systems, especially the liver, because it helps with the metabolism. But not only that, the gut has its own neural network, right? And literally, when someone says, I have a gut feeling, I mean, there is a neural network.
Absolutely.
And so there is a communication that's going back and forth between the brain stem, and the gut, totally. I want to pivot to the silver gel. So,
sure.
Explain a little bit about this product here.
So that's basically our liquid silver solution that we were talking about earlier. And then what we've done is we've basically just thickened that as a topical. And one of the nice things with the gel is we've formulated the gel just slightly acidic, because if we look at the biome of our skin, it is a slightly acidic atmosphere as compared to what we want internally as an alkaline. So what you've got is you've got a chemical-free topical product there that, when we were talking about the digestive system earlier and leaching those toxins out through the body and then getting trapped in the skin, well, basically those are bacterial and pathogens and toxins getting trapped in the skin. So we see the effects of skin condition, right? Nobody ever really steps back to say, okay, well, what is this skin condition? I've got acne, or I've got rosacea, or I've got certain things appearing on my skin. But so often people don't just step back and say, okay, why am I getting this? Like, what's causing it? I just want to chase it with product. And, the internet tells me I need to buy all these kind of different products to chase this problem with, but let me go after it for what it truly is. So when we look at a lot of the skin conditions, like I say, it's back to that leaky gut syndrome. So like we're cleansing the gut, let's say with the silver, the same thing is we're cleansing the skin with the gel, right? And I'm not going to say that that gel is going to heal or treat or cure any kind of skin condition. But what I will say is, if we know how to cleanse our body both internally and externally, then we can see the positive effects on that, right? And there's this big debate out there on health supplements, right? People will take multivitamins, they'll take the probiotics, they'll take kind of whatever product, and they'll say, okay, I took this product and it healed my X condition. Well, for the record, there isn't one health supplement on the market that will actually heal any problem with the body. And most supplement company owners will be looking at me and saying, this guy's nuts. Like, this is what we do. We make products to heal people. Well, we don't. And I'm saying this as a health products manufacturer, is what we do is we make products that give substances to the body that the body's missing in order to heal itself. Because our body is the healing, treating, curing machine. That's the way it was designed. And if we just give the body what it needs, as far as good food, good supplementation, good water, then the body's going to heal itself. What we're missing is the unfortunate thing is due to lifestyle, due to harvesting, due to foods, our body is not getting everything it needs to.
Plus, as we get old, as we get older, when we move,
totally. It needs some extra horsepower.
We're just not as efficient, so we need a little bit of help to be more efficient.
So when we look at supplementation, and this is where our calling as supplement manufacturers is, and where we want to be for the people, is we want to make sure that the supplements that we produce and the supplements that you've got there, and I say this, best way I can say it is, I'm not trying to play God in how we develop supplements. What we do is we try to get every vitamin, mineral, botanical herb that we deal with as it was from the earth into the human body without any form of manipulation. And that's
and a lot of people don't understand how important multivitamin is, because they are cofactors for enzymes for different processes within the cell. If you don't have these cofactors, these enzymes will not work at all, or they work with very low efficiency.
Do you want to see something really cool? And this will kind of shock your viewers if we can do this right in real life, because you're talking about why is a multivitamin important, right?
Yeah.
So if you want, I can just do a really, really quick little demonstration here for you.
Yeah.
I'll just set it up as we're talking, because this will kind of blow your mind. But when we look at multivitamins and what's the purpose of a multivitamin, multivitamins are your spark plug of life. That's what controls the impulses of your heart to beat, of your brain, of everything to function, comes from your multivitamins. So I'm going to just do this really.
Well, that's very true. I mean, because if you don't have the proper potassium, you're going to have T-wave problems on your ECG.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do a really quick test for you. So when we look at our foods, and if I had set this up earlier, I would have been more prepared, but I'm just going to do this really quick to show you something. When we look at our foods that we eat nowadays, if our foods were getting proper mineralization from the ground, I'd actually be able to turn a light bulb on with those foods because they'd have the proper mineralization. But what I'm going to show you is with the multivitamin here. Let me see if I can break this down here. Okay, so you can see my camera right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what I've got is I got a multivitamin tablet right there. Okay, and in this shot glass, I'm going to pour just some distilled, and I'm going to take a tablet of a multivitamin. I'm just going to break it up just so I can undo it. Okay, so I'm taking about half a capsule of a multivitamin and just putting it in that shot glass.
Okay.
Okay, so you still have that much within the capsule. Give that a little stir. See that?
Wow. Wow.
So that's showing right there that the minerals are so active in that multivitamin that it's making that circuit connect between the two prods. Right? That's really cool. So that's showing that as soon as that multivitamin becomes active in your body, when it breaks down through the coating, right, and it disperses, that you're now firing the impulses in the body.
Right. Right.
Okay, so I'll
And
show you
people need to
something.
realize that because of, we have different receptors and ion channels,
Yeah.
For different cells. And if you don't have the proper supplementation, these cells aren't getting the nutrients it needs to, to set off these reactions in the cell.
Here's another quick test for you. So that's a really cool test on multivitamins. And so if a company is using a really poor quality multivitamin, then you're not going to see that same transfer of energy, right? So here's another quick test for you. We're talking about probiotics. We're talking about this hot, acidic atmosphere in the digestive system, right? So I'm going to simulate that here really quickly. I'm going to just take distilled water, and I'm going to turn it into an acid. And I'm going to turn it into a heavy acid here. Okay. So there's your hot, acidic environment of your digestive system as an acid. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we want to do, and this is the probiotic here, is we want to actually be able to take that hot, acidic environment of the digestive system, and we want to get it back to an alkaline state, right? Because we're neutralizing and helping the body. So here's a probiotic capsule. I'm just going to put the contents into that acid. And right there in front of your eyes, you're going to see that instantly go from a harsh acid changing to an alkaline. Now watch this. And I'll do this right in front of the camera. See that? We've just completely neutralized that acid. So that's really important, because when we talk about supplementation and we talk about good supplements versus, quality supplements versus supplements that may not do what they're supposed to do, right? I like to prove those kind of things out and show instant change and what that means for what it's going to be doing.
And it's important that you're bringing up, because an awful lot of people in the United States, and probably also in Canada, have problems with their digestive system because of gallstones.
Yeah.
And, you can get this a backup, and you're not getting the bile acids going into the duodenum to be able to neutralize the acid that's coming from the stomach. So in the duodenum, things are supposed to go from acidic to alkaline. But if individuals have gallstones or blockage in that duct, or problems with their pancreas, which a lot of people have pancreatitis, that whole mechanism that you're talking about to try to turn that environment into a base instead of an acid from the stomach is disrupted. So it causes problems with the lining of the duodenum and the duodenum.
Exactly.
And I totally, you're right, you're absolutely right. And this is a part of the reason a lot of absorption that is taking place in these early phases for certain minerals. So if it's disrupted and aggravated and inflamed, you're not going to get the absorption properly.
And that's our job in what we do, and what we do together here is, if we can just get the body into that reset mode, right? We can't eat for the other person. We can't exercise for the person. We can't sleep for them. But what we can do is we can get them products into their body that starts their body on that journey. And I don't even want to say on that healing journey. It just gets the body on that reset journey to what it was supposed to be in the first place. And one of the misconceptions out there is people think that they can take, whether it's silver or probiotic or stuff, and all of a sudden, in a week I'm going to be feeling better, because so many people have been marketed quick fix solutions their entire lives, right? What I always like to say to people when they say, when will I start noticing results, or how quick am I going to get better? Well, how long has it taken you to get to the position that you're in today? If somebody's 50 years old, it's probably a good 45 years that it's taken their body to get to the point where it's sick and tired of being sick and tired. So we are going to see it's going to take a little bit of time to get it back to where it needs to be, or where it is. But, people can start feeling better pretty quickly, because if we can start cleansing a lot of the junk out of the body, energy seems to come back fairly quickly. Sleep can come back fairly quickly. The feelings can start to come back fairly quickly. And what we got to do is we got to keep on that mission, though, of getting the body reset, and not fall back and say, hey, I'm feeling good, I can go back out and have, double cheeseburgers and stuff again. No. It's a process of a new life, let's say, that we've got to help people get into the mood, and the motion of embracing.
With the gel, what I do, I curated different anti-aging boxes, right, for different products, so they can just do a one-click, or they can buy individual products. But what I've done is that I've made two different boxes for skincare, and one is a lower price point one, where I call this like a beginner's box for skin health, and then a more advanced one. So in the beginners is collagen, the gel. So you put the gel on the face, or the rest of the body overnight, and keep it on.
You can use it as a makeup primer too. For people that wear makeup, they can use it as a makeup primer.
Yeah, well, I didn't know, but the idea here is that put it on the skin, keep it there overnight. Every day, take collagen, this big tub of collagen that you take in the morning, and then vitamin C, and then the idea is to drink filtered water, 64 ounces of that. I know you're on metric, but 64 ounces of water, and that's the beginning. And what will happen is, over time, the skin will actually look healthier, right? It won't like take away all the wrinkles. That's not the point. But the thing is that the skin will actually, so it's doing it internally and externally. So the external part of it is the gel. And what people have started to notice is that there's a tightening that's starting to take place with the skin. And then, some blemish marks may start to fade, or, some problem areas that may be inflamed, or, abrasions or whatever, they heal quicker. And what will happen is that there's there's the skin will start to clear at the top level. Now at the bottom level, the vitamin C and the water and the collagen will metabolize, and it will start to build up a better dermal layer.
Mm-hmm.
Now it won't get rid of like deep wrinkles, but what will happen is that the skin will actually be healthier, right? And you're doing it from internal and external. And then the advanced box takes all of that and then adds the C60, which is a strong antioxidant, and the resveratrol that gets rid of senescent cells. So what's happening at the cellular level, the average cell, as your skin rejuvenates, right? But there are some cells in that tissue that kind of just hang around, right? Right. But when you can get rid of those hang around cells, those senescent cells, and improve the health of the basal layer for the skin, or that's where the regeneration is taking place, then what will happen is the average telomere length will actually be longer, because you're getting rid of the bad cells. The bad cells, the senescent cells, have the shorter telomere length. So in essence, if you sample the skin pre-treatment, what you'll see is that the average telomere length is shorter, more age cells. But post-treatment, you're going to see longer telomere length. So at the cellular level, it's actually younger.
Totally.
You know, chronologically, you're you're still X years of old, but cellularly, it's actually younger. And this is the part of the play on words, anti-aging, right? There is a difference between your cellular age and your chronological age, and sometimes you could be 50 and cellularly be 70, or you could be 50 and cellularly be 25. It just depends on which way you go with your health. But that's another way to couple it with other products to improve your overall health.
Completely. And that also helps promote stem cell activation as well. So when you bring up anti-aging, I think for probably the bulk of people out there, when they think anti-aging, they think, I look in the mirror, I look older than I want to look, right? And that pretty much defines the anti-aging market, is how I look in the mirror. And what we're talking about here, and what you're doing there with what you're putting together, is a nice formula of products that are going to help somebody feel better when they look in the mirror. And you're not doing it with a bunch of lotions and potions. You're doing it from, hey, let's rejuvenate the body from the inside out. Because whereas we look at most anti-aging products, they're going for that instant gratification look, right? But the next day, you're back to ground zero again, right? And even with collagen products, it has to be blended with an overall system, because if we're not restoring the cells and the skin tissues that are going to be coming, our skin's constantly shedding, right? So if we're not restoring what's coming in behind that and making what's coming in behind that better and stronger, and that's what we're talking about, is we're not talking about let's just go after the dying topical layer of skin. Let's think 10, 20 layers of skin deep, that what's coming in behind it is more stronger, is better, is healthier. And by doing
improving
that,
the vascular part
exactly,
of the skin, even the immune system, improving the immune system in that area, the nerves of that area. It's not, here's the problem, is that a lot of products, like you said, are topical, and it's just dealing with the keratin layer.
mm-hmm.
But the problem is that the keratin layer is technically, at the very top of the keratin layer, is dead cells. They're keratinized, and it's actually waterproof. It's like a waterproof system for us, right?
Right.
If it wasn't there, we would have a problem, right? So the key here is kind of attack from both directions, from topical and from the internal, and improve that dermal layer and the surrounding structures in, that are even subdermal. Better blood flow is going to improve your skin. You just, necrosis. You look at people that are older and they start to have problems with blood flow, right? You start seeing their skin ages much more rapidly, right? Being outside, even though, it's important to be outside and get, sun and all that, but that we are bombarded by ultraviolet radiation that causes disruption of DNA. There's a dimerization that takes place that if you have too many of these dimerizations in the DNA, then what will happen is the repair mechanism to fix it starts to get disrupted, and then the keratosis start, or the basal carcinomas start, or, so the key is, if you can, and a lot of this stuff can be somewhat mitigated by reducing the reactive oxygen species and less stress on that lower level, improving that vascular system. I don't want people to misinterpret what I'm saying. People that are outside working in the garden, they should probably have some sunscreen on or cover themselves, right? That C60 isn't going to prevent skin cancer, but the point I'm making here is that when you have cellular stress and you're bombarded by additional radiation, ultraviolet radiation, alpha, beta, right? UVA or UVB, right? You're going to have these dimerizations that take place. But if you have cellular processes that can apoptose and get rid of that cell, then you're reducing the chances of having those skin lesions, skin cancers, problem with keratosis or junctive nevus or whatever, right? So, it's a holistic approach, So, I just wish that people just really pay attention. We are living in a really interesting time compared to, let's say, the 1980s, when we didn't really have this knowledge, and
It's
people,
taken that time to develop. Yeah.
if people stuck to the program, stuck to like an anti-aging protocol of some sort, over a year or 2 or 3 year period, and then look at them before and after pictures, they're going to go, wow, I can't believe this, because there's a compound effect that takes place.
Totally. So what you're talking about there, and then whoever's looking at doing that, looking at every decision about what you put into and onto your body, right? We look at soap, for instance, and I don't know if you carry the soaps or not, but
yeah. I have all your different soap things.
Perfect. So with the soaps, this is the cleanest ingredient deck of soap on the market today. You won't find any fillers, any nefarious chemicals in the soaps whatsoever. So the way that we approach it is, every decision of what we engage with, both in our body and on our body, is either going to have a positive or a negative effect, right? Because our body is programmed to substantiate a healthy life. But I'm a car guy, so I always make relations to cars. But if I was doing a service on a car, would I put water in the radiator, or would I put antifreeze in the brake fluid, or do one of those things? And the answer is always going to be, well, of course not. Like, you're going to ruin your car. Well, we got to look at the car almost like the human body for a second. We put all of these nefarious chemicals, and we were talking about those coming in from the foods and everything else. But we put all these, bombard our bodies with these chemicals. And then we think that our body is this superhuman machine that can just decipher all of this and do something with it. But the unfortunate thing is our bodies weren't programmed to use these chemicals. So over time, they get stored in the body. They create these inflammatory conditions, but they create the illness. They get stored in our liver and our kidneys, and our body basically says, what are you doing to me? I don't know what to do with this, so I'm going to hold on to it. All of these chemicals and everything feed the pathogens and the bacteria and continually make us sicker and sicker and sicker. And we wonder, why am I looking old? Why am I feeling terrible? Why are these problems happening to me? Well, it's every decision of everything that you use. And I don't want this to sound overwhelming to somebody, but you can almost gamify life a little bit too and say, okay, this dinner I'm going to eat tonight, or this breakfast I'm going to eat tonight. Forget about the calories, forget about all of that other stuff for a minute, and the fats and everything. Just forget about that for a second. What's in this food that I'm going to eat today, right? If it's coming out of a box, well, there's actually going to be nothing in that food that's actually going to do anything to complement your health. So you've just taken a step backwards, right? Replace that box of hamburger helper with a head of broccoli. You won't feel as full as you did from the hamburger helper, but I mean, your body's going to react to that and say, okay, I know what to do with this, right? So it's the same with our personal care products. And just back to the soaps for a second. When you go to a grocery store and you pick up a bar of soap and you look at that, I mean, there isn't an ingredient on the back of that soap that you can pronounce, right? So if you can't pronounce that ingredient, do you think that came from a natural source? Not a chance. So our skin, being our body's biggest organ, we're covering it with this chemical substance of quote unquote soap. It's all just going straight into our skin, straight down to our liver and kidneys. So not only is it damaging the layer of the skin, right? Because we know that we can get dryness, itchy and cracky just from soap, but we're pouring those chemicals down into our body so that they can cause that leaky gut syndrome, spill back out and come back out to the skin and make you look old, right? We're talking about anti-aging. So just look at the soaps. Hey, there shouldn't be anything that you can't pronounce on this bar of soap, right? And this proves that you can make a bar of soap 100%. If you're going to wash your kid's mouth out with soap because he's swearing too much, it's probably the right bar to do so, right?
Right.
So, and it's the same with mouthwash as well. You go in and you pick up a bottle of mouthwash in the grocery store. The first big symbol on it's contact poison control if you're swallowing that. And there's an anti-aging component to this too, Paul. So you put this mouthwash in your mouth for 30 seconds, swish it around, but our glands are right here that are distributing everything to our body. So when we talk about coronary and heart conditions, where are those glands going, right? So just because you're spitting it out in 30 seconds, how much has your body absorbed of those chemicals, those alcohols and those triethylenes and all those different chemicals that if you take, and I did this, and this is an exercise that people should do, but if you take a mouthwash, you take a bar of soap, you take a product, a thing of toothpaste, and you actually just go and you read the ingredients on the back. And then you just Google those ingredients as individuals. Every one of them is going to have a toxic poison control side to it and say, basically, don't take this. But they put it all in a bottle and they serve it to us and say, here, this is going to make your breath fresh. Well, at what cost, right? So here's a mouthwash, and I'm not trying to be a salesman here. I'm just trying to help create pictures. This is just a silver solution with some essential oils and some peppermint essential oil and trace minerals. I can light up that light bulb with this mouthwash the same as I did with the multivitamin, because we've got ionic trace minerals in here. And guess what? I can take this mouthwash and I can swallow it.
Right.
No poison control, no fear of anything, because it's just 100% natural. So when we look at every decision of what we do with our body, it's looking and saying, step forward, step backwards, step forward, step backwards on the things that we're using. And the one thing I can guarantee anybody that's watching this is you actually can live a lower cost life doing it natural the right way than the chemical way.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah, that's a very strong point here. People don't realize that, if you take control of your health now, in the long run, you will save money. Because if you don't take control of your health when you're somewhat healthy, right? It's going to be much more expensive when you're dealing with, a heart attack, a stroke,
Prescription medication.
colon, yeah, or diabetes, uh, gout, liver diseases, whatever, it's better to deal with it early and to try to prevent disease. That's the key. Try to prevent disease. Than to say, well, I'm just going to wait until a problem manifests and then go to the doctor, and then he's going to prescribe all this medication that is, in many ways, in many medications, is toxic. At any dose level. So it's just better to take care now, and it'll be cheaper in the long run, because most of the healthcare dollars for an individual is in their last 20 years of life.
Totally. And you know what's interesting is you look at the big soap companies, you look at the big shampoo companies, and I don't like any of them because they're all full of junk, right? But they'll say, hey, this is fortified with aloe, this is fortified with such and such a raw botanical. Well, if the chemicals are so good, why are they promoting on all their commercials the natural components that they're putting into it, right? And I just always find that funny when I'm watching these commercials and I say, okay, this one's got aloe and this one's got this and this one's got that. They're always marketing, the natural components that they're putting in these products. What people don't realize when they see those products, though, and this is what I hate about this industry, is there's actually not enough good ingredient in that bottle to make it a good product, because all of the chemicals offset that one little piece of good. But people buy into that and say, oh, it's got aloe, I got to have it, right? But you're just filling yourself full of chemicals with those products anyways. But there has to be something that even those big companies are saying, hey, there's goodness in natural, because people buy it when we promote it. So just by human nature is what I'm saying. We know that our default is to get back to the earth, is to get back to what our bodies are intended for. And that's always the way it's going to be. We just have to, in what you and I are doing here, is help educate people and empower people and give them the options to do so.
Well, that's a great point to pivot and talk about what's going on in the industry and how government is trying to take all the benefits that we're talking about away from you. So
yeah,
what is going on with the government?
Well, what we've seen over the last few years is we've definitely seen a much larger corporation base, let's say. And I don't know how deep you want to go on the channel here on this, but we've definitely seen an overarching power base dictate to us what is good for us, what we can put into and onto our body, and what the recommendation methods of treatment are. Is that kind of the best way in code to sort of say where we're at today?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get you deplatformed or demonetized with this.
Well, I'm already demonetized.
Okay.
I'll forever be demonetized on YouTube.
They just hear your voice and it's like, shut that guy up. So with that being said, is we're seeing now this overarching control seeping itself into the natural health space, right? Because forever what we've seen is any customer that moves out of the conventional system and into the natural system is a customer lost, right? And we do know that in the conventional system, it's a sick care system, right? Like when you get a prescription from a doctor, for instance, you're pretty much thinking, okay, I'm going to be on this for the rest of my life, right? Whereas in the natural space, it's to keep the body functioning good and long term, but we shouldn't look at it to say that, okay, I want to have somebody on my products for the rest of their lives, right? I want to get people healthy. There is certain products like in this day and age where, yeah, they should be a part of your natural routine for the long term, because we're just not getting, like when we talk about vitamins and minerals and these kind of things, we're not getting those from our foods. So is it a longer term or forever kind of product? Yeah, but not coming at it from a healing standpoint, just coming at it from an immune
Maintenance.
standpoint and maintenance. We've got to keep our bodies properly maintained, right? Um, so the natural health space is under attack. There's bills in front of Congress to rewrite the DSHEA Act, and that's going to take a lot of power away from the natural health supplements. So when we look at a natural health supplement, for instance, and if anybody's wondering, okay, what's the DSHEA Act? It's the Dietary Health and Supplement Act. So you've got the Pharmaceutical Act, you've got the Cosmetic Act, you've got the DSHEA Act, and each one of those regulates different forms of health. So whenever you look at a bottle or a natural supplement, let's say, that's not an over-the-counter from a pharmacist, you've always got that statement, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product can't heal, treat, or cure, or do anything positive for you, so I don't even know why you want to take it. That's kind of what you have to say as a natural supplement. So that's part of the DSHEA Act. So natural health supplements can't heal, treat, or cure any condition. So that's why we always have to be so careful in the natural health supplement space as to how we language a health supplement, right? Whereas a pharmaceutical, and everybody sees a pharmaceutical commercial every second commercial that they watch on TV, right? And it's going to be great for you, but you got a 1 minute ad, 20 seconds is what's good for you. The other 40 seconds is how it's going to, cause different
Diarrhea,
things to happen. Totally.
Cerebral hemorrhage, right?
All of it. And you're like, why would I even want to consider taking that?
Right.
But they can say all of that because that's the drug act. If we said for a second that, hey, take our product and you're going to have such and such a noticeable difference, bang, the FDA is pounding on our door, and we're out of business. So what they're trying to do is they're really trying to even put the screws tighter to the natural supplement industry by having all of the natural supplements report to the FDA, report their databases, report the manufacturing, report the ingredients, report absolutely everything. And there's a list of like 400 ingredients that the FDA is looking to deem as, what's the word for it? I'm just going to say a banned ingredient. That's the wrong word, but it's a controlled substance is the one that they're reclassifying a lot of ingredients. Even turmeric, controlled substance, silver, controlled substance, zinc, aloe, all of these controlled substances. So what does that mean? Still, the verdict is yet to be seen, but if we can see the direction it's going, if we look at CBD, forever it was a controlled substance, right? Which means that even when it was starting to become legalized, a website couldn't sell it, a merchant processor wouldn't process it, you couldn't sell it on Amazon, you couldn't sell it unless you were selling it for cash, even though even at that point it was legal because it was a controlled substance. So we're going to start, in my opinion, seeing more and more and more of these ingredients becoming controlled substances. So products that contain them won't be available to be sold. And for us as, for yourself that's selling product online, us as manufacturers, we may not be able to make these products any longer.
Right.
And the crappy thing is when we look at it, it's because the forces on the other side of the fence see what we do in the natural health space and say, well, you're taking customers away from us. Right? So you're costing us money. You're $150 billion industry, or whatever size the natural supplement space is. That's $150 billion that we're not getting over on the other side. So we got to get rid of you little people. It's not about trying to help people, right? That's not how it's looked at. It's looked at as these are customers that we could have. And even though the natural health space is making just a huge difference in people's lives, it's that whole sick system that's trying to dominate everything and chase the natural space out. And on our next episode that we do, we're going to really get into the weeds on this as far as what's coming in and some of the acts that are sitting in front of Congress right now, and how that matters. But I mean, I'm just scratching the tip of the iceberg here on this, because we're getting, you know, towards the end of time here today. But next time we're going to tear into this big about what's sitting in front of Parliament in Canada, what's sitting in front of the United States. And I mean, even as far as like these things are moving fast today, as far as what's coming down the pipeline here.
Right. And, you know, and this is why the public that's watching this video needs to get engaged. If they want to take control of their own health, then they have to reach their representatives and say, hey, no to some of these policies that are being passed in Congress or in your parliament. You know, because if we don't get engaged, if we're not engaged citizens, then we're going to be going to a time where we don't have these products anymore. You know, we're going to go back to the 70s or the 80s before the C60s and the liquid nano silvers and all this, right? And go back to this old model of you know, disease and treat, as you say.
Exactly.
You know what you know, my perspective, you know, because of medical school, my perspective is there's a new generation of students and of clinicians that are teaching at the medical schools that are seeing the benefits of the natural path of trying to prevent disease, or even in certain cases augment it with, you know, allopathic treatment. So they call it CAM, all right, complementary alternative medicine, I think it's. So, but basically what it is that the MD route, the allopathic route, the MD route is bringing in some of the things that we're talking about now. All
That's
right.
great, because it wasn't, you know, so long.
No, it's just starting. It's just starting, and so, you know, it's even a specialty in internal medicine. So you know, where it's like to try to prevent disease through proper nutrition and proper diet and cleansing and all this, and that's an internist fellowship, right? So that's, you know, the industry, quote the industry, there's different characters in the industry. You know, there are the schools, the medical schools, and yes, a lot of the schools are supported by big pharma, right? You know, to help with, you know, donations or a building or a research project or whatever. But I think the bigger issue here is you have big pharma with the FDA or the CDC. And what happens is that there's a revolving door. So the ones that are at the FDA, they know that, okay, when I leave the FDA, I'll get a cushy position at XYZ farm company. All right. And because I have intimate knowledge and I have connections within the whole process, it will, you know, as a board member, it'll you know, I will be able to help them get through some of the clinical problems that may arise. People will be amazed. Some people will be amazed, I guess. I think a lot of people already know this, but you know, when they do these clinical data, you know, data for some of these drugs, they play around with where's the cutoff to be able to show efficacy, right, and safety. So there's not enough eyes looking at this whole I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back kind of stuff going on between big pharma and the people that are working at the FDA. So, and then what happens is pharma says, well, you know, we'll donate a lot of money to the, you know, such and such party if you sponsor this bill. And that bill is to kill off what we're doing. And that is, you know what, take control of your health through changing your lifestyle so you don't need to be on metformin for 30 years. You know, but you know, the irony of this is that my father, he's ailing. He's he's in the nursing home. He has ischemic dementia. It was diagnosed in 2021, and so he's declining. But he used to work for AstraZeneca.
Oh, wow.
So and so he was in pharmaceutical sales for many years, and he started in ophthalmology. And back in the 70s, there were like small farm companies that started to get bought out. So there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions that were taking place in the late 70s and definitely through the 80s. And then big pharma really took off in the 90s. Well, as he was, working with these different companies and getting bought out, and he eventually ended up retiring from AstraZeneca. And, but I saw through, his whole career, that side of the industry. They play games, and back then in the 70s and the 80s, you could sponsor a doctor, take them out to, expensive lunches, and, go to the golf course and do all this. Then they kind of stopped that, but the point I'm making is that there's this arc of pharma that, because they've accreted and they have a lot of money now, and they're tied to impressing Wall Street, they have to have a blockbusting drug all the time. And so orphan diseases aren't taken care of. They're looking for heart disease or Alzheimer's that have, that millions or billions of people have a problem with, and they'll, it impresses Wall Street, and they add $10 to $10 per share to the stock price and all that. That's how the game really is working. So they're not really focused. The big pharma isn't really out there to help your health. It's to impress investors.
Well, it's actually
It's nothing to do with health. It's only stock price.
It's against their business model to actually help with health, because they want to get you onto a product, right, that
Mhm.
you're going to take for the indefinite future. And the more people that they can get onto a product, then the more profitable they're going to be.
Mhm.
And one of the most profitable endeavors of the pharmaceutical industry was the Ask Your Doctor campaign. Because if you look at, your dad's role and other people's role early on as a pharmaceutical rep, if he was in this portion of it, was actually visiting doctor office to doctor office to doctor office to sell them on the drugs.
Mhm.
Well, that was a very inefficient business model to, wait all day to talk to a doctor for 5 minutes to get him to say, hey, this is the new drug you got to sell. So rather than that, they scrapped that whole system. They took it onto TV, made these fancy commercials of people dancing around like rainbows and unicorns and jumping through the grass, and everything was going to be great, riding around on their golf courts, and saying, ask your doctor for such and such, ask your doctor for such and such. So what they did is they completely turned the people into the sales reps to go to the doctor and say, I got this condition, I want this drug. So they eliminated tens of thousands of expensive reps and just turned the whole population into their own advocates. And as gross as that is, what a brilliant business model on their part to do so, going back to what you're talking about for, Wall Street and this kind of stuff. Like, not a better way to jack up the profits than to just have everybody as your salesperson.
He was right at that transition point where it was the old school, and then Crestor comes out.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so he was riding that wave too, and then he retires. So, he saw he was part of the old way, repping, seeing the docs, explaining their patients. He would shadow, with certain doctors and talk about, the benefits of this drug versus this drug, what the clinical studies are and all that. It was basically to inform the doctor on why to use their products. And then, gave samples and blah, blah, blah. But near the end of his career, it switched the model. And it was around that Crestor. Remember, Crestor is the statin thing. And, it was switching. Ask your doctor about such and such.
Viagra was one of the big ones, was one of the first ones as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you, Doug, being on the channel, and I have to prepare for the next recording. I'm going to be doing a recording with George Webb today. But what we're going to do is we'll do part 2. We'll go deeper into the, these acts that are taking potentially a change in the landscape of the environment that we work in. And also, hopefully, we'll get some questions from this video, and maybe we can answer those questions.
Feel free to bring those questions,
All right.
and we'll do everything we can to answer. And we're here to help. So for anybody that's watching this, we're here because we actually do care, and we want to help, and we want to make a positive impact in people's lives. So thanks, Paul, for having me on here today, and look forward to doing this a lot more together.
Great. All right. Let me stop the recording here.